When sovereign states cannot resolve territorial disputes, the international legal system relies on one ultimate authority. This map highlights the contested borders of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. On July 19, 2024, the International Court of Justice issued a definitive advisory opinion on this territory. The court ruled that Israel's continued presence here is an unlawful presence and constitutes de facto annexation. The court's ruling specifically cited the prohibition of acquiring territory by force. By tracing the expansion vectors of settlements past the Green Line, the issue shifts from a political debate into a documented violation of international treaty. The physical evidence of this acquisition is visible on the ground. A concrete separation wall divides Palestinian neighborhoods, while active construction projects continuously expand settlements onto the surrounding hillsides. The highest international court has now officially codified disoccupation as an illegal acquisition of territory. This establishes an undeniable legal baseline, one that allied nations providing military support can no longer claim ignorance of. Looking south to Gaza, the legal framework shifts to the Geneva Conventions. This devastated urban landscape represents a separate, distinct set of legal obligations. Under the conventions, an occupying power has specific mandated duties. They are legally required to preserve civilian life and actively facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid. This data visualization plots metrics tracked by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. It compares the required baseline of aid delivery against the actual recorded blockades and structural demolitions. Tracking this timeline reveals severe spikes in both mass displacement and civilian casualties, directly correlating with periods of restricted aid and intense military operations. These documented treaty breaches triggered a direct response from the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. This moves the legal process from state-level disputes over territory to individual criminal accountability for leaders. With the global justice system formalizing these classifications, nations providing military support now face a framework where state policy is linked to documented criminal liability. As the enforcement of these international standards remains stalled, military operations have scaled into new jurisdictions, specifically into Lebanon. State sovereignty in this region is defined by the Blue Line, a border demarcation monitored by a dedicated United Nations peacekeeping force to prevent territorial incursions. The kinetic reality on the ground rarely respects these legal boundaries. Heavy military hardware crosses established sovereign lines, executing operations entirely outside of an international legal mandate. The immediate result of these sovereign breaches is a severe civilian toll. Relief Web data indicates that over 700,000 individuals in Lebanon have been displaced from their homes, forced into the streets with whatever belongings they could carry. Even with diplomatic interventions like the June 26th Framework Agreement in place, infrastructure destruction and military strikes continue. Treaties and ceasefires prove ineffective without an enforcement mechanism. Despite universal condemnation and documented human rights violations, the state's military footprint continues to expand across sovereign lines, seemingly detached from the enforcement mechanisms meant to constrain it. To understand this, we have to look at the domestic response among United States, specifically a statute known as the Leahy Law. The law's mandate is explicit. The U.S. government is legally obligated to immediately halt security assistance to any foreign military unit if there is credible information that they have committed gross violations of human rights. The statute is regularly enforced against global partners. For example, the State Department has barred multiple Ukrainian military units from receiving assistance after they failed the standard human rights vetting process. The law is also applied to close regional allies in the Middle East. Egyptian security units have been suspended from U.S. aid under these exact same statutory guidelines. This comparative bar chart, built on a 2025 Government Accountability Office report, reveals a stark discrepancy. The U.S. has barred 11 units in Ukraine, 9 in Jordan, and 3 in Egypt, but 0 Israeli military units have ever been barred. According to former State Department officials, the executive branch relies on a unique, opaque consultative process designed exclusively for Israel. This mechanism effectively shields the country from the standard human rights vetting procedures applied to every other nation. The result is a permanent Israel exception in American foreign policy. In late 2024, human rights groups like Dawn filed landmark lawsuits aimed at forcing the U.S. State Department to simply obey its own domestic laws. If the executive branch is actively bypassing domestic law, why does the legislative branch tolerate it? Much of this legislative restraint is linked to the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, and its super PAC, the United Democracy Project. During the 2023-2024 election cycle, AIPAC and its super PAC spent a combined $126.9 million, a historical record. Tracking that money shows a massive vector funneling over $45.2 million directly into campaigns of winning members of the 119th U.S. Congress. This spending has a specific tactical outcome. It ensures unconditional military aid from allies in office, while aggressively funding primary challengers against any politician attempting to enforce human rights conditionality. The clear rulings from international courts have met a barrier within the United States, a highly funded domestic lobbying apparatus that works to ensure the enforcement of human rights law does not extend to Israel.